Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily. Ronnie Rance alongside Tommy Krysan here with you on this Thursday morning edition of Sports Shorts. TK joining us from Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. Hope everybody had a good one. We will be with you tomorrow as well for more Sports Shorts Daily. TK will be joining us. But today on Sports Shorts Daily, we're going to talk. I want to get some thoughts on LSU Alabama last Saturday since I wasn't here earlier this week. Was out of town. Want to talk about that for a minute. Of course, LSU, Arkansas. I'll be up in Fayetteville this Saturday. The Tigers find themselves only a 3.5-point favorite, and I want to get Tommy's thoughts on that line. For that 11 a.m. kickoff, temperatures going to be in the 40s. Obviously, Arkansas has had a little bit of a disappointing year for them relative to what they were supposed to be. Will LSU have a letdown coming off of the biggest win in a long time? So, we'll get into all of that. The LSU men's and women's basketball get off to hot starts for their season, dominant wins over lesser opponents. Although LSU did not look great offensively for the men's team. They win by 11. The point spread was 24. They were only up 7 at half. They hit a big kind of a miracle three right before the horn to put them up 7 at half. So, not the best start for LSU men's basketball, though they did have a nice crowd at the games. The Saints find themselves on the road in Pittsburgh. Always fun. The Saints don't travel to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers very often, but you get a chance to do that. They're a 1.5-point dog on the road. I know some friends of mine from the Bears are all going to be making that trip up to Pittsburgh, as it is a beautiful place this time of year. Tulane, is this, Tommy, arguably the biggest game in Tulane history? At least it is in the last 25 years. Let's go right there down to New Orleans to start on it, Tommy. Green Wave, a 1-point favorite against Central Florida this Saturday, 2:30 in the afternoon. The winner has the inside track to be playing in a New Year's Six bowl game.
Well, it's really for the American Athletic Conference Championship. Tulane's 8-1, UCF 7-2. They packed Ullman Stadium a couple weeks ago. I'm hoping that happens again. Weather's supposed to be perfect. Tulane, Green Wave, quietly. So, they're the highest ranked group of 5 team right now, which if they end up they're in a New Year's Six bowl game. So to answer your question, I guess you got to go back to 98 when they went undefeated with Sean King and all of that. But since then, it's clearly the biggest game with the most payoff, if you will. If they win this game, they got one more conference game, but they put themselves in a great spot. Coach Willie Fritz and the Green Wave have kind of quietly, taken over. They're 17th in the college football playoff rankings. You know how many good programs are way behind them? A lot. So give Tulane credit. Let's hope the fans show up at Ullman Stadium Saturday afternoon, and hopefully the Green Wave can get that win. Very, very big.
The Ullman Stadium only holds around 30,000 people. And they were packed the last time they played at home. So I imagine it'll be bulging at the seams. Chris Chance Babin pointing out Tulane better contain Plumlee, who's playing quarterback over there at Central Florida. Listen, this is great for Tulane. Fritz, the coach who did a great job at Georgia Southern prior to coming to Tulane, has been just what the doctor ordered for that program. I know last year they took a downturn, but then they came right back. They've been, very competitive the last few years. Tulane's made it a little bit easier to get in some of its athletes. They don't have the same rigorous academics that they did years ago. Look, I love their on-campus stadium. Now, it's a shame that, you got to be a top 20 ranked team before people really come and pack it. But it's a great little stadium right in the middle of town, very comfortable. We did the state championships there last year with Catholic High and Jesuit. And that was probably the biggest crowd they had in that stadium before Tulane's last home game. But it's a great little environment, man. And if you're a local New Orleanian that grew up a Tulane fan, there's no reason, no excuses for you not to go to these games. And then, of course, the more they win, the more people like ourselves kind of take notice and maybe want to go to this game. If I wasn't in Arkansas for the LSU Arkansas game this Saturday, I definitely would be there because I do want to see them play a home game over there with a good crowd in that environment. Got to be weird to be the neighbors. I mean, if you've ever seen Tulane's campus, the stadium is literally on the campus. and there are literally houses on the left and the right side of the stadium. I mean, and nowhere to park. It's an interesting environment. But look, I would love to see LSU and Tulane play in football again. It used to be the biggest game of the year every year, the last game of the year. I grew up in New Orleans, and I can remember every year talking about it in school and paying attention and looking forward to that game, even if LSU was way better or not. There were times where Tulane upset them. So I think it's good. I'm happy that Tulane is relevant again.
Yeah, I really am. It's rare that we're talking about Tulane football in November. That hasn't happened in many years.
Correct.
But yeah, I hope the crowd turns out. I hope they can get the job done. It's a big challenge. They're only a 1-point favorite, as Chance points out, the former Ole Miss quarterback and baseball player Plumlee. He's really got UCF going well. Like I said, they're 7-2. They're 4-1 in conference play. Tulane 5-0 in conference play. So if Tulane loses, they lose the tiebreaker to UCF going forward. So a lot on the line for the Green Wave. I hope they get it done.
All right, what's the line on that game, Tommy?
Tulane's laying a point.
1 point.
So, I mean, the wise guys think it's a toss-up, and the over-under is 54.5. They're not thinking a lot of points are going to get scored.
All right, so I want to go back.
Now, Ronnie, I said about 5 weeks ago would be nice if LSU and Tulane played the bowl game. One of the national pundits has them playing in the Cotton Bowl. LSU versus Tulane in the Cotton Bowl this year. Now, that's like mock drafts. It's stupid to do bowl projections. Really stupid when you don't know what's going to happen. But anyway.
LSU. Before we go talk about LSU Arkansas, I want to talk about Saturday for a minute because it wasn't here earlier this week. LSU Alabama on Saturday. And I know there's been tons of memes and everything made about Brian Kelly's decision to go for 2 and all that. This was an Alabama team that clearly isn't its best Alabama team. It's not like LSU beat the 2011 team or even the 19 team. But that said, this is still a team that's a very good team. I would say Alabama for sure is obviously a top 20 team and probably for that matter a top 12 team in the country. But LSU is yet to really click on all cylinders. They're offensively they're getting tons better. Obviously, they got 40 on the field, and letting him go do his thing has been a big part of why the defense is better. But there's still so much opportunity for growth on this team that doesn't have the depth it's going to have next year or the year after because just simple roster attrition. But yet here they are being relevant. They deserve to be a top 10 team in the country. They are 7th in the playoff poll. I thought the Saturday night environment was one of the best environments I've been in. You don't see that environment very often, Tommy, because even when it's a big game out, Alabama's different. You put Alabama's in a different perspective, but when they're playing someone else, fans leave early. Doesn't matter the score. Fans aren't as into it. I think there's too many suites. There's too many clubs, and I mean, it's good for LSU. But people are just so comfortable. It's like old box, new box. The old Alex Box Stadium was super loud and intimidating. The new one, not as much because, again, people are uncomfortable further away from the stadium. But this reminded me of, years ago where LSU truly had a home field advantage. The students and all the fans were into it from the first part of the game. Brian Kelly said it after the game, and I really do believe it. That game was – That game for LSU was helped by the fans in a giant way.
The atmosphere was unbelievable. It was unbelievable coming through the TV. Okay, how exciting it was, and it was almost like the World Series where every pitch matters. It was almost like every snap, was going to be something that could happen. It could, throw the momentum on somebody's back or turn the tide, pardon the pun, in the game, whatever it might be. It was just one of them epic instant classic. I mean, it was unbelievable.
How did LSU cover the spread? That was the most unbelievable thing ever. Cover the over under. I mean,
because of overtime. Yeah,
there was no way. I mean, it was 7-6 at half. There was no way that game was ever going to be over. And then all of a sudden, a couple things happened in the fourth quarter, and I remember leaning over to a buddy and saying, "Hey, if we hold them to just a field goal, we're going to hit this over because then all we got to do is this." I mean, it it was connect the dots and somehow it hit the over. I mean, you talk about a bad beat. If you're a gambler, you're sitting there with 5 minutes to go in a game, you've already spent your winnings, and then all of a sudden you lose that over. It was a tremendous atmosphere. I don't know that I have a strong opinion, Tommy, on the decision to go for two. That's been the most talked about topic all week. You know, I think if he doesn't go for two and he kicks the extra point and and Alabama scores and LSU doesn't in the second overtime, I was okay with that decision. But I'm okay with the decision to go for two because I put both of them as a 50-50 proposition. I think if they kick the extra point and you go to another overtime, it's 50-50 on whether LSU wins that game or not. you make it one play, it's 50-50. So there's no real advantage one way or the other. In that moment, I thought, and so I was okay with either decision. It didn't move me. I didn't say, what is he doing? You know, I was like, oh, I'm surprised he's going for it. But okay, I can understand and live with it.
Well, here's my real-time 15 reaction when Daniel scored, okay? As soon as I realized they were going to go for two, my first thought was, no, just kick the extra point. Then 2 seconds later, I'm thinking, well, you missed the extra point against Florida State. You don't want to let that happen again. Then about 3 seconds after that, I said, you know, if you go second overtime, LSU had to have the ball first. The offense is going to stay out there. And in the second overtime with the new rules, you have to go for two. You don't have the option.
Right.
So go for it now. I mean, again, I had the advantage of sitting on the sofa watching it and thinking all that out. But I think Brian Kelly knew when LSU got the ball that if he scored a touchdown, he was going for two because he had to play. A play they ran in 2019 when he was at Notre Dame against Bama. It got called for the rub play, the pick play. And it was successful but nullified by penalty. So he got it done. And if Mason Taylor doesn't catch the ball and get in there, if you look at the film, which everybody had, Daniels could have probably ran it in if Taylor would have been better covered. But it was a short pass, but it was very accurate. Taylor gets it over the cone, and boom. I think it's a great call. Obviously, it worked. That makes it a great call. But had it failed, I still think it was the right call. Now, again, I had time to think about it going forward.
I always love a guy like that is a runner quarterback, giving him that run pass option, which is what they did by rolling him out. Again, if everybody goes with the receivers and there's nothing there and he gets around the pick, then again, he's got that run pass option and where he can even press the line like he's going to run it. And then if they break off, he can dump it, you know. So I always like that, giving your quarterback an option as opposed to just staying in the pocket.
Well, I said it on Sports Shorts Radio Saturday morning when I picked LSU to win 34-28. I said, that's the kind of quarterback that in history has given Saban fits. Johnny Manziel, Chad Kelly at Ole Miss beat him twice. And quarterbacks that can have that effect on the defense. And as Chance said, the Alabama defense didn't know what was going on. They actually almost had 12 people on the field when the ball was snapped for the 2-point conversion. That guy barely got off the field. I was thinking, just snap it and get yourself a yard closer. But anyway, it worked out. And what I like, two things I like, Ronnie. One, the first question from the media Monday to Brian Kelly was, Coach, is that the greatest win you've ever had? He goes, nope, the greatest win I ever have will be when we win the national championship. That's the mindset. He knew the question was coming. That's what he said. Then what I like, we're kind of moving forward. They asked him if it was a trap game against Arkansas. He said, it's only a trap game if you think it's a trap game. Our team's not going to think that. We'll see.
Look, you know, Brian Kelly is not warm and fuzzy. He's not the guy you go to TJ Ribs and you take the great picture and all that, clearly. But, you know, I've had a lot of people, we had a couple of Alabama friends ask me last week, you know, they wanted to know, what do you think of Kelly? And, you know, how's he going to fit in down there? And I had the same answer with him that I had with everybody is we didn't know who Nick Saban was. Nick Saban's not warm and fuzzy. He came from the North. And all people cared about back then, 22 years ago, was, is he going to win or not? You know, I mean, yeah, there were other big names people thought they wanted, but are they going to win or not? And it was pretty clear and obvious, you know, early on with Saban that you could see the development of the team and the improvement and just the well-coached type of aspect. The other stuff was irrelevant. For some reason, 22 years later, and I don't know if we got spoiled with Coach O having him for a few years, where he, you knew this was his dream job, and he's from the Bayou, and he sounded like a lot of the fans that are LSU fans, and we just got so used to that. We so wanted to have a homegrown boy that we thought that mattered. But I go back to, hey, it was a nice story to have him, and hey, obviously he did a good enough job. He got Joe Burrow, and he was able to keep some really good coordinators, and he won a national championship, and he'll always be thanked for what he did at LSU, just like Les Miles is the same way. But Kelly was always the best coach out there. Like, nobody thought we could get Brian Kelly. First off, when everybody was talking about who's LSU going to get as the coach, Brian Kelly's name really never came up because he's at Notre Dame. Nobody thought he would leave Notre Dame to come to LSU. But if when you look at it, he was the best guy for the job, and so LSU got the best guy. They didn't get the best PR guy. They didn't get the best, TJ Ribbs take a picture guy, but they got the best CEO type coach out there. And then the NIL day and age, in the transfer portal day and age, where it's about money and pros and being well coached, he fits the bill, man. He fits the bill perfectly.
I'm going to go back to Marcus Spears' quote on the Dan Patrick show the week Brian Kelly got hired. And Dan Patrick said, Marcus, is he going to be a fit at LSU? Marcus Spears said, Dan, if he wins, he'll be a fit.
Yeah.
End of quote, end of story. That's it. Just like you said, Ronnie, we had Nick Saban. Like, really? He's coming from Michigan State, team we just beat in the bowl game. He's coming here? Yeah, okay. And then, well, we know what happened. So, hey, Brian Kelly, Skip Berman said he's a Hall of Fame coach, and I agree with that. Skip said that in August before they played the first game, because he
was a Hall of Fame coach before he even came to LSU.
Yeah, so he won 40 games with Ian Book at quarterback. Okay, that should put him in the Hall of Fame if nothing else. So, I mean, gee. And, is he a little ahead of schedule right now? Perhaps.
Yes.
If they lose to Arkansas this week, do you say, oops? Yeah, it's a way to go. And if Jaden Daniels is coming back next year, like he said he was, then they're getting recruits left and right, not just the coming season, but the next year, the transfer portal. I mean, the kids are going to want to come play at LSU real quick. By the way, Ronnie, did you see the video? It went viral, like 20 million views. Chris Fowler and Herb Street on the airplane.
I did not.
You got to see that. It's like 6 minutes long. They're drinking a couple of cold beers, and Fowler and Herb Street, props to LSU, Brian Kelly, the fans. I mean, you got to watch. I know you've been busy, but you got to. It's everywhere on social media. You got to look for the Chris Fowler, Kirk Herb.
I saw a little bit of the end, but I didn't see the whole thing.
Yeah, it's worth your time.
So, someone asked earlier if the weather affected us. So I was over in Orlando, Florida the last 3-4 days for a fun little Ryder Cup golf tournament with Louis Garcia, Team USA with Buzzy Heidel, RBA. We brought home the cup again, Tommy. Wasn't even close.
So I say condolences to Louis.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. The matter of fact, this morning, the International Federation announced he was being fired. They're going to replace him as captain with someone else because he's never won. I think this is now the 6th time he's lost to Team USA. So it's a tough deal right now in Miami. They're getting rained on, and they've fired their coach. So it's been a tough one. But, we were in Orlando. We played. We were there Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday. Yesterday was supposed to be the last day. We got some rain on us towards the end of the round on Tuesday. Wednesday, we were planning on playing and fighting through a little bit of the elements because, when it's those tropical storm kind of outer band type things, it comes, it rains, and then, it comes maybe, for 5 minutes, and then it comes back maybe 30 minutes later for 5 minutes and so on. And but actually they closed the airport. Now everybody's so cautious and safe, overly cautious and safe. They closed the Orlando airport at 3 or 4 o'clock yesterday, as well as private airport at like 12:01. So we had, unfortunately, about half our team, we had to get out of there before the deadline. But we left 4 players there. They had 4 players, and we only needed 1 point to lock up the cup. We ended up getting 2, and I think we won, Tommy, 13-7. 13 points to 7 points.
And I know you had some Tremonti's meat and seafood down
Yeah.
there for the gang to eat. So you said that went well. Some big
Yeah,
old
special
tomahawk
thanks to
steaks.
Mike. Yeah, he got us some good meat, and we had an awesome time. So, anyway, that said, we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. But it was fun. We were over there. The thing that wasn't fun, we watched the Saints Ravens game together. With a bunch of Saints fans in Orlando. That was brutal. It's amazing how the NFL, how there's just no carryover from one week to the next. You beat the Raiders 24-0. You think you fixed some things, and then all of a sudden they go out there and they had no chance. And if you watched the game, it wasn't as close as the score. The Ravens were so much the better team from start to finish. It wasn't even funny. And, it's interesting. You look at the quarterback for the Ravens, you look at his stats. Ran for under 100, threw for under 200, but he was the best player on the field. I mean, by far. The Saints had no answer. Whenever they needed a first, they got it, and the Saints absolutely had to have this game. And just they were overmatched.
Yeah, no, I got the feeling watching that game. You kind of second quarter, so you're like, Saints aren't going to win this game. I don't know the final score, but they're not going to win this game. That was the feeling and I was watching it with some friends. That's the feeling we all had as well. Kept waiting for something to happen. I mean, I thought the Saints might win because Tyrann Mathieu actually made a couple tackles. So I thought maybe he would spark the team because he actually made a couple tackles early in the game.
Lamar Jackson, if I'm the Ravens, Tommy, and look, I get it. You can pick holes in Lamar Jackson's game from a standpoint of, not the best passer in the world. That Ravens, since he's been a quarterback there, their wide receiver numbers are the worst in the league. But in a league that is quarterback driven, and if you have a top 10 quarterback, 10, 12 quarterback in the league, along with a good defense, you have a chance to be in the Super Bowl. I don't know what the Ravens are waiting for as far as locking him up long term. Unless they've got some side deal commitment from somebody underneath the table that we don't know about, I don't know what the Ravens are. The Ravens need to lock up Lamar Jackson and let him be their quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years. Are you in agreement with that?
I agree. I don't think the Ravens can get a better quarterback than him, considering all the landscape. He can hurt you with his legs. He can throw the ball. He's got a strong arm. He's a league MVP one year. I mean, they don't just give that stuff away to anybody. So I agree. The Ravens should lock him up. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, and he can change a game, which is what you want a quarterback to be able to do.
I don't know. I'm not giving up completely on the season, but I'm probably paying attention more to the Pels now, who are 6-5 and take on Portland and are a 6.5-point favorite tonight. But we'll talk plenty more about Pelicans, about Saints tomorrow. We'll get into a lot more LSU Arkansas as well tomorrow. My last recap on the win over Alabama. That is how you rush a field. I mean, that was the most intense, awesome field rush I've ever seen. It didn't just come from the student section. It came from every opening, from all 4 corners of the stadium at once. They weren't destroying things. It just was a joyous moment. And that was an awesome experience to see the field rush. I was on the field and I rushed the field in 1997 when they beat number 1 Florida. Now they tore the goalpost down back then and took one of them to Tigerland. They didn't, obviously since then they've changed the technology. They've got the goalpost that and it's harder to do, and they put cops right around the base of the goalpost on both sections immediately. I mean, that's the number one priority. Don't let anybody get on the goalpost. They block the eye of the tiger to try to keep people off that, because in the past people would go tear up pieces of the eye of the tiger. They would literally take scoops of grass of the eye to take home as a keepsake. So they put people around the eye. They put people around the goalpost. Both benches kind of put all of their equipment in about a 10-yard radius and kind of made like a little circle with the benches and equipment staff on the Alabama and LSU side to make sure people didn't steal helmets or balls or whatever. But other than that, they let them just go and celebrate, and it was an awesome environment to be up in the suite level, be able to look down and just see the people within a matter of 2 minutes to complete the whole field was completely full. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, somebody said, "Man, that cost them $250,000." I said, "Okay, listen, you're gonna play. You're gonna pay UAB. I'm gonna guess they give him the Blazers $800,000. That's
Yeah,
a guess. I could be
$1 million.
off.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, $800,000 to $1 million. Well, why not pay $250 to celebrate a win against Ole Miss or Alabama? I mean, now if Brian Kelly keeps winning and they take over the West, then you got to grow up a little bit and maybe don't charge the field for every win. But I get it. And look, the game is supposed to be about the fans. LSU fans are passionate. They know the game of football. They spend a lot of money. They wear the hats, the shirts, the gear. They wanted to have some fun. I mean, they can find that $250,000. I'm sure Scott Woodward had that before noon the next day.
And Brian Kelly, he endeared himself to the LSU fans with that post-game comments on the field where he got emotional talking about the big win and everything. Because look, he is that, Northern CEO type. He doesn't seem extremely emotional. Seems very calculated in his responses. But in that moment, when everybody else in the state of Louisiana was emotional, Brian Kelly got emotional as well. And that was pretty awesome to see. People were absolutely appreciative of that. And I think he got tons of brownie points.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have warmed up to him, since he's been hired. I mean, I've certainly bought into him. And the more I listen, the more I observe what he did, what he said, all that good stuff. And you're right. He added to the fan base of Brian Kelly. Because there were people when they lost Florida State said, "We got the wrong coach." I mean, really? There were people that said that. So I think you just got to say the old Rants 13 quote, let it play out. I think it's going to be a good one.
Byron Painter with a great quote. He said, like knocking the top off of an ant mound, talking about the people rushing the field.
That's a good one, Byron.
That's a very good. And now that's exactly what it looked like. Because if you turned away to like high five and hug somebody in the stands and, can you believe that? I can't believe, whatever. And it took 20 seconds to do that interaction. And you turn around, you'd be like, wow, every 20 seconds, just more and more and more people. It was pretty intense. It was awesome. All right, we'll talk plenty more about the game, the Arkansas game tomorrow. Of course, LSU lost in overtime to Arkansas last year. The question becomes, we have seen this time and time again. It's not about the coaches. We know the coaches they're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. They're going to do their job this week. They're not looking ahead. But we're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who've been celebrating all week, who've been getting their backs patted on when they go to class and in Tigerland and all their friends and text messages and DMs. And can they put the Alabama game behind them and focus on an early 11 a.m. cold in the 40s kickoff in Arkansas? That's going to be the question. Arkansas has got a lot to play for at home. This could make their season if they knock off the Tigers. For LSU, they got to win to kind of keep Atlanta alive. Right now, LSU's got an 80% chance, according to the bookmakers, to make it to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. TK, tell us about Tremonti's before we get out of here.
Hey, lunch special today is jambalaya. It's not too early to order your Thanksgiving turkeys, fried turkey, rotisserie, smoked turkey, all the side dishes you can imagine. Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. Order your Thanksgiving turkeys now. Stop by or give them a call. Connect on Facebook and Instagram. They've taken a lot of orders already, getting ready for Thanksgiving. It's not that far away. So get that done. Again, lunch special today is jambalaya if you want some lunch. And we're going to be back, 9:30 tomorrow morning?
Be back. Actually, you and I got to work out the time because
okay. And I know, let's remind them that Sports Shorts Radio will be 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday. Sports Shorts Radio After Dark, as you like to call it. So there you go.
We'll be live at Barstool Sports, by the way, if you want to come on out and have a great meal and come visit with us. Derry Beckwith, myself, Joel Davis, Tommy Kreisand, Hunter McCann, the gang will all be over there this Saturday night, 7 to 9 at Barstool Sports. I'm actually going to the game, Tommy. We'll be back in time to make the show. So
private planes are a good thing.
And you know what's even better than that, Tommy, is to fly with people who have their plane. Not your plane, somebody else's plane.
All right, so we'll get together with a time tomorrow. Everybody, follow it all on social media. We'll post the time as soon as Ronnie and I figure that out a little bit later today. But we'll be back tomorrow morning at some point with more. I'll be again at Tremonti's, and of course, don't forget LeBaire Sportsbook, the Barstool Sportsbook out at LeBairs. I've had a lot of people that made it out there finally and said they absolutely love it.
All right, we'll be back tomorrow for more Sports Shorts. Until then, have a great one, everybody.